In our modern world of endless distractions and instant gratification, laziness has become a pervasive affliction affecting millions of lives. We delay important tasks, procrastinate on our goals, and find ourselves caught in debilitating cycles of inaction that prevent us from reaching our potential. This state isn't merely inconvenient. It represents a profound disconnect from our deeper purpose and values, leaving us feeling frustrated, unfulfilled, and perpetually behind. The symptoms of this modern malaise are everywhere. The important project continually pushed to tomorrow, the health routine abandoned after initial enthusiasm fades, the creative pursuit that remains eternally in the planning stage. Behind these patterns lies not a deficiency of information or opportunity, but a failure to consistently align our actions with our deeper values, a fundamental challenge of human existence that transcends our technological age. The ancient Stoics, philosophers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, observed these same patterns of human behavior over 2,000 years ago in the Roman Empire. Though they lacked smartphones, social media, and Netflix, they understood that humans naturally gravitate toward comfort and away from effort. They witnessed how the wealthy citizens of Rome could become paralyzed by choice and comfort, just as we often find ourselves scrolling mindlessly rather than engaging in meaningful work. What distinguished the Stoic approach was their refusal to view laziness as a fixed character flaw or moral failing. Instead, they recognized it as a universal human challenge to be overcome through disciplined thought and deliberate action. Seneca himself admitted to struggles with procrastination, writing to a friend, "I'm always doing that which I cannot do, in order that I may learn how to do it." This acknowledgement that even the most dedicated philosopher faces internal resistance makes Stoicism uniquely relatable and practical. Stoicism offers a particularly effective framework for combating laziness because it focuses exclusively on what we can control, our judgments, values, and actions, rather than external circumstances. Unlike modern productivity systems that often emphasize tools, techniques, and environmental factors, Stoicism addresses the root psychological causes of inaction. The Stoics believed that true happiness, eudaimonia, comes from living virtuously and in accordance with nature, which requires disciplined action rather than passive indulgence. The Stoic approach also differs fundamentally from contemporary motivation strategies that attempt to manipulate emotional states. Rather than waiting for inspiration or the right feeling to begin important work, Stoicism teaches that proper action should precede and ultimately create the appropriate emotional state. As Epictetus instructed, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. In this comprehensive exploration, we'll examine 6 powerful Stoic approaches to overcoming laziness. These aren't quick fixes or productivity hacks, but profound shifts in perspective that address the root causes of our inaction. Each approach builds upon fundamental Stoic principles while offering concrete strategies for application in daily life, illustrated with both ancient and modern examples. By embracing these Stoic practices consistently, you won't merely become more productive in the conventional sense. You'll develop greater clarity about what truly matters in your life, strengthen your resolve to pursue it with purpose and determination, and ultimately experience the profound satisfaction that comes from living in accordance with your highest nature. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nothing is worth doing pointlessly." The Stoic path leads not just to doing more, but to doing what matters with excellence and integrity. One memento mori, remember your mortality. The Stoic principle. Perhaps no Stoic concept is more powerful in fighting laziness than memento mori, the practice of remembering that you will die. This cornerstone of Stoic philosophy wasn't unique to the Stoics. Contemplation of mortality appears in philosophical and spiritual traditions worldwide. However, the Stoics developed particularly practical applications of this awareness for daily life. The Stoics didn't dwell on death to induce fear or anxiety, but to instill urgency and meaning into every day. They recognized that confronting mortality directly transforms our relationship with time, perhaps our most precious and limited resource. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and devoted Stoic, wrote repeatedly in his meditations about the brevity of life and the importance of using time wisely. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Soon you will have forgotten all things, and soon all things will have forgotten you. Many grains of incense on the same altar. One falls before, another after, but makes no difference. These reminders weren't meant to frighten, but to liberate, to strip away the trivial concerns that consume our attention and focus us on what truly matters. By acknowledging life's finite nature, we recognize its infinite preciousness. Seneca, another prominent Stoic, observed that most people paradoxically both complain about the shortness of life and waste much of it on meaningless pursuits. In his essay on the shortness of life, he wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. Life is long if you know how to use it." The Stoics practiced memento mori through various techniques, from meditation on mortality to keeping symbolic reminders of death's inevitability. These weren't morbid obsessions, but practical tools for living with greater intention and purpose. Why it overcomes laziness. Laziness often stems from an illusion of unlimited time, what psychologists now call temporal discounting. We postpone important work because we subconsciously believe there will always be a tomorrow to accomplish it. We think, I can always exercise next week. I'll start that business someday. Or, I'll repair that relationship eventually. This postponement feels harmless in the moment, but accumulates into years of unrealized potential. The awareness of mortality shatters this illusion and creates natural motivation that doesn't depend on fleeting emotional states. When we truly internalize that our days are numbered, that we won't have unlimited opportunities to pursue our values and contribute meaningfully, procrastination becomes intolerable. Cognitive neuroscience supports this Stoic insight. Research shows that when people contemplate their mortality, they become more likely to align their actions with their deeper values rather than immediate gratification. The question shifts from why should I do this now to why would I waste any of my limited time? This perspective transforms how we evaluate the cost of procrastination. The true price of delaying important work isn't just the task itself, but the irreplaceable life energy it consumes. Hours and days that could have been invested in meaningful creation, connection, or contribution. Consider the example of Warren Buffett, who famously uses a 5/25 rule that embodies this Stoic principle. When determining priorities, he identifies his top 25 goals, then circles the 5 most important. Everything else becomes an avoid at all costs list, not because those goals lack value, but because time is too precious to dilute across too many pursuits. This ruthless prioritization reflects a deep awareness of life's finite nature. Practical application. 1. Structured morning mortality meditation. Begin each day with a structured contemplation of your finite existence. Find a quiet space immediately after waking. Close your eyes and take 3 deep, conscious breaths. Silently recite, "I have been granted this day, but it was never guaranteed. This could be my final day on earth." Visualize your day as if it were your last, not with anxiety, but with appreciation for the opportunity. Ask yourself these specific questions. If this were my last day, what would deserve my time and energy? What would I regret not having said or done? How can I make this day matter in the context of a finite life? Set 3 specific intentions that align with your answers. Don't rush this exercise. Even 2 dedicated minutes can transform your day. The Roman philosopher Seneca advised, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let's postpone nothing." 2. The detailed deathbed perspective exercise. When facing resistance toward an important task, find a comfortable position and close your eyes. Imagine yourself at the very end of your life, looking back on your journey. Visualize specific details, where you are, who's present, how your body feels. From this perspective, consider the task you're avoiding. Would completing this work have contributed to a life well lived? Would you regret not having pursued this? What would your end-of-life self advise your current self about this choice? Write down your reflections in a dedicated journal. Steve Jobs employed a similar practice, asking himself each morning, "If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today?" He noted that whenever the answer was no for too many consecutive days, he knew he needed to change something. 3. Weekly time life audit. Conduct a systematic examination of how you invest your life energy. Each Sunday evening, record in detail how you spent the previous week's hours. Calculate exactly how many hours went to various categories: work, relationships, recreation, personal growth, maintenance tasks, and passive consumption. Convert these hours to percentages of your week. Now imagine these same percentages applied to your entire life. Ask, if I continue this pattern, will I be satisfied with how I lived? Which activities would I increase or decrease if truly conscious of my finite time? Make specific adjustments to the coming week's schedule based on this reflection. Naval Ravikant, entrepreneur and philosopher, practices this principle by asking, am I spending this hour in a way that's consistent with how I want to be remembered? 4. Personalized mortality reminders. Create meaningful symbols that serve as ongoing reminders of life's brevity. The ancient Stoics sometimes kept skulls, memento mori, on their desks. Modern equivalents might include a simple hourglass or sand timer visible in your workspace, a custom phone wallpaper with a meaningful quote about mortality, a special piece of jewelry that serves as a tactile reminder, a calendar that displays your statistical life expectancy in weeks. There are online tools that generate these, a dedicated journal solely for reflections on how you're using your limited time. Author Ryan Holiday keeps a memento mori coin in his pocket, which he touches whenever making decisions about how to invest his time. 5. Annual life review ritual. On your birthday or the new year, conduct a formal life review through the lens of mortality. Dedicate at least 2 uninterrupted hours for this practice. Begin by writing your own hypothetical obituary as it would appear today if you died unexpectedly. Read it aloud, noting emotional reactions and realizations. List achievements you're proud of and contributions you've made. Identify areas where procrastination has prevented meaningful action. Draft specific commitments for the coming year that address these gaps. Schedule quarterly check-ins to review progress. Bronnie Ware, a palliative care nurse who worked with dying patients, documented that the most common regret she heard was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. This annual review helps prevent such regrets. The deeper transformation. When practiced authentically and consistently, memento mori doesn't just make you more productive in a conventional sense. It fundamentally transforms your relationship with time and mortality. This transformation occurs across multiple dimensions. Priorities clarification. Activities that merely consume your limited life energy without providing meaning or growth become increasingly intolerable. You naturally gravitate toward work and relationships that align with your deepest values. Urgency without anxiety. You develop what psychologists call temporal scarcity, an awareness of time's finite nature, without the paralysis of anxiety. This creates a healthy urgency that motivates consistent action rather than avoidance. Freedom from social comparison. As your focus shifts to the brevity and preciousness of your unique life, the compulsion to measure yourself against others naturally diminishes. The question becomes not, am I doing better than others, but am I using my limited time authentically? Gratitude and presence. Paradoxically, regular contemplation of death enhances your appreciation for life's ordinary moments. Research in positive psychology confirms that mortality awareness can increase gratitude, which itself counteracts procrastination. Legacy consciousness. Your decision-making increasingly incorporates consideration of the impact your choices will have beyond your lifetime, what Stoics might call living service to something larger than yourself. As Seneca eloquently wrote in his essay on the shortness of life, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. When you truly embrace your mortality through consistent Stoic practice, laziness loses its appeal in the face of life's preciousness. You begin to view each day not as an unlimited resource to be casually spent, but as a non-renewable asset to be invested with wisdom and intention. 2. Amor fati. Love your challenges. The Stoic principle. Amor fati. The love of fate. represents one of Stoicism's most profound and transformative teachings. While the Latin phrase was later popularized by philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, the concept deeply permeates Stoic philosophy. It means embracing everything that happens, including difficulties and obstacles, not merely with passive acceptance, but with genuine affection and enthusiasm. In Nietzsche's words inspired by Stoic thought, my formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. This radical perspective goes beyond mere resilience or endurance. It calls for actually welcoming challenges as essential components of a meaningful life, seeing the obstacle not as something that happens to impede your path, but as the path itself. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The Stoics believed that obstacles aren't impediments to a good life, but rather the necessary raw material for one. Every challenge presents an opportunity to exercise virtue, develop strength, and express our human excellence. This isn't mere positive thinking or reframing. It represents a fundamental shift in how we understand the purpose of difficulty in human experience. Epictetus, who began life as a crippled slave before becoming a renowned philosopher, embodied this principle in his teaching. Don't seek to have events happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go smoothly. Coming from someone who experienced extreme hardship, these words carry particular weight. They represent not naive optimism, but hard-won wisdom about the nature of human flourishing. The Stoics developed this perspective from their physics and metaphysics, which view the cosmos as a rationally ordered whole in which everything happens according to nature, kata fusion. What appears as adversity from our limited perspective serves a purpose in the larger order. By aligning our will with this natural order, by loving what happens precisely because it happens, we achieve harmony with the cosmos and freedom from futile resistance. Why it overcomes laziness. Laziness often stems from our fundamental aversion to difficulty and discomfort. We avoid tasks precisely because they require effort, present the possibility of failure, or involve facing uncertainties that trigger anxiety. This avoidance creates temporary comfort, but ultimately leads to diminished capabilities and unfulfilled potential. Psychological research confirms this pattern. Procrastination is rarely about time management, but is instead an emotion regulation problem. We delay difficult tasks to temporarily escape the negative emotions they evoke: anxiety, boredom, frustration, self-doubt, or confusion. This avoidance provides immediate relief, but creates long-term problems. Amor fati directly addresses this root cause by transforming our relationship with difficulty itself, by reframing challenges as opportunities rather than burdens, by actually learning to welcome resistance rather than flee from it. We undermine the psychological basis for avoidance. This perspective shift proves especially powerful because it works at the level of values rather than techniques. Instead of trying to push through resistance with willpower, strategy that typically fails, we actually come to value the resistance itself as essential to our growth and excellence. When we genuinely embrace challenges as opportunities, we no longer need to escape into procrastination. The very resistance we feel becomes a signal that something valuable awaits us on the other side, a chance to develop virtue, strength, and character. We begin to actively seek challenges rather than avoid them. This transformation aligns with contemporary psychological findings on the growth mindset developed by Carol Dweck and anti-fragility, coined by Nassim Taleb. Both concepts that reflect the ancient Stoic understanding that we develop excellence precisely by engaging with difficulty rather than avoiding it. Practical application. 1. Systematic challenge, reframing protocol. When facing a task you're avoiding, implement this structured reframing process. Set a timer for 5 uninterrupted minutes and find a quiet space. On paper, create 3 columns with these headings. Specific difficulties. List exactly what makes this task challenging. Growth opportunities. For each difficulty, identify specific virtues or skills you could develop by engaging with it. Future benefits. Detail how these developments will serve you beyond this particular task. After completing this analysis, create a single statement that captures the value of this challenge. This difficulty is valuable to me because... Post this statement where you'll see it during a task. Example: a student avoiding a complex research paper might identify the difficulty of organizing vast information. Recognize this as an opportunity to develop mental clarity and analytical thinking, and note how these skills will benefit future academic and professional pursuits. 2. The obstacle as the way practice. Adopt Marcus Aurelius's perspective through this methodical approach. For 1 week, maintain a dedicated obstacles journal. Each evening, identify the day's 3 most significant obstacles. For each obstacle, answer these questions. How did this obstacle actually create an opportunity one wouldn't otherwise have had? What strength or virtue was I able to exercise because of this challenge? How might this obstacle be precisely what I need for my development right now? After 1 week, review your entries to identify patterns in how obstacles consistently create value. Ryan Holiday, modern Stoic author, applied this principle when his book was rejected by publishers. Rather than seeing this as a setback, he used the feedback to completely rework the manuscript, resulting in a far stronger book that became a bestseller. The obstacle of rejection became the way to excellence. 3. Progressive voluntary discomfort training. Systematically build your capacity to engage with difficulty through deliberate discomfort. Begin with a 30-day voluntary discomfort program, starting small and progressively increasing intensity. Week 1. Daily 30-second cold shower finishes. Week 2. Full 5-minute cold showers. Week 3. 16-hour intermittent fasting twice weekly. Week 4. 1 day of complete digital detox, no screens. For each practice, maintain a log documenting physical sensations experienced, emotional reactions observed, insights gained about resistance and comfort, transfer effects to other areas of life. After completing the program, select one practice to continue indefinitely as a reminder of your ability to choose discomfort. Silicon Valley entrepreneur and biohacker Tim Ferriss employs similar practices of voluntary discomfort, noting that they build comfort with discomfort that transfers to professional challenges. 4. Resistance, gratitude, meditation. Develop a formal practice of gratitude for the resistance you encounter. When you notice yourself avoiding an important task, pause for a 3-minute meditation. Close your eyes and locate the sensation of resistance in your body. Place your hand on this area and breathe into it. Silently repeat, "Thank you for this resistance. It shows me where I need to grow." Ask yourself, what specific quality is this resistance helping me develop? Visualize yourself developing this quality as you engage with the task. After completing the task, journal about how engaging with resistance contributed to your development. Psychologist Kelly McGonigal's research supports this approach, showing that viewing stress as enhancing rather than debilitating transforms its physical and psychological effects. 5. The opponent process technique. Leverage the psychological principle that our initial response to stimuli tends to be followed by an opposite response. When beginning a challenging task, set a timer for just 10 minutes. Fully acknowledge and accept any resistance, knowing it will naturally diminish. Focus entirely on engaging with the task for those 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, notice how the initial resistance has likely decreased. Decide whether to continue for another 10 minutes. Journal about how the intensity of resistance changed during the exercise. This technique teaches experientially that resistance is temporary, building confidence in your ability to move through initial discomfort to reach the state of engagement that psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called flow. The deeper transformation. With consistent practice, a more fatty transforms how you perceive effort self at a neurological level. Through neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself through experience. Your neural pathways actually rewire, changing your instinctive response to challenge. This transformation occurs across multiple dimensions. Physiological response. Your body's stress response to difficult tasks changes from threat-based fight or flight to challenge-based focused engagement, reducing cortisol and increasing performance-enhancing hormones like DHEA. Attention allocation. You develop the ability to focus on the growth potential within challenges rather than their discomfort, effectively filtering your perceptual experience to emphasize opportunity over threat. Identity shifts. You begin to define yourself as someone who thrives through challenge rather than someone who avoids it. A profound identity shift that makes confronting difficulty consistent with your self-image rather than contradictory to it. Hedonic adaptation. You experience what psychologists call eustress, the positive form of stress associated with growth and achievement, as inherently rewarding rather than aversive. Tasks that once seemed like burdensome obligations become meaningful challenges to embrace. The very sensation of resistance becomes a familiar friend rather than an enemy to avoid. You develop what psychologists call psychological anti-fragility, actually becoming stronger through stressors rather than merely resistant to them. Epictetus taught that difficulties are what show a person's character. When you love your fate, including its challenges, laziness loses its appeal because you're no longer seeking to escape difficulty, but actively engaging with it as the essential path to your best self. This transformation represents not just a productivity enhancement, but a fundamental shift in your relationship with life itself, from resistance to embrace, from avoidance to engagement, from fear to love. As Nietzsche wrote in expressing the Stoic principle, not merely bear what is necessary, but love it. 3. Premeditatio malorum, negative visualization. The Stoic principle, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, is the Stoic practice of deliberately visualizing potential obstacles and difficulties before they occur. This isn't pessimism, but pragmatic preparation that allows you to respond virtuously to challenges rather than react from surprise. Seneca advised, "He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." By mentally rehearsing difficulties, you develop resilience and strategic foresight. Why it overcomes laziness. Laziness often thrives on unrealistic optimism about tasks. We imagine everything will go smoothly, then become discouraged and quit when we encounter inevitable obstacles. By anticipating difficulties in advance, we inoculate ourselves against the discouragement that leads to abandoning our efforts. This practice also overcomes procrastination by addressing the uncertainty that often underlies it. When we've mentally prepared for the worst possibilities, we're less likely to delay taking action out of fear. Practical application. Pre-mortem analysis. Before beginning an important project, ask, if this fails completely, what will have gone wrong? Then develop specific strategies to prevent or address each potential obstacle. Resistance mapping. For tasks you habitually avoid, identify all the specific points of resistance, the moments when you're likely to quit or procrastinate. Visualize yourself encountering and moving through each one. Comfort with discomfort. Imagine the specific discomforts involved in completing your work, mental fatigue, confusion, criticism, and visualize yourself accepting these sensations without being deterred by them. Implementation intentions. Create if-then plans for potential obstacles. If I feel overwhelmed by this project, then I will break it down into smaller components and focus on just one. Research shows these specific contingency plans dramatically increase follow-through. The deeper transformation. With regular practice of premeditatio malorum, you develop what the Stoics called parasky, a state of preparedness that allows you to meet any circumstance with equanimity. This isn't just about completing tasks. It's about developing an unshakable will that isn't deterred by difficulties. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. This preparation didn't make him cynical, but equipped him to respond virtuously rather than reactively. By preparing for obstacles, you transform from someone who requires perfect conditions to take action into someone who can act effectively under any circumstances. 4. Focus on what you can control. The Stoic principle, central to Stoic philosophy, is the dichotomy of control, the distinction between what we can influence and what we cannot. Epictetus opened his Enchiridion with this foundational teaching. Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. The Stoics taught that peace of mind comes from focusing our energy exclusively on what we can control, primarily our judgments and actions, while accepting everything else with equanimity. Why it overcomes laziness. Laziness often disguises itself as concern with outcomes beyond our control. We delay writing because we worry the final product won't be good enough. We postpone difficult conversations because we can't guarantee how others will respond. We avoid exercise because results take time and aren't immediately visible. By shifting focus from uncertain outcomes to the actions within our control, we eliminate the anxiety that fuels procrastination. The only relevant question becomes, what is the next appropriate action I can take right now? Practical application. Control circles exercise. When facing a challenge, draw 2 circles. In the inner circle, list everything about the situation you can directly control. In the outer circle, list factors beyond your control. Focus your energy exclusively on the inner circle items. Process over outcome. Set goals focused on actions rather than results. Instead of write a brilliant essay outcome, commit to write 500 words daily with full concentration. Process. This keeps you engaged with what's in your control. The discipline of assent. Practice consciously examining your impressions throughout the day. When thoughts arise like this is too difficult or I'll fail anyway, ask, is this within my control? Is this judgment helping me take appropriate action? Daily retrospective. Each evening, evaluate your day based solely on the quality of your choices and actions, not on external results. Ask, did I act according to my principles? Did I focus on what was within my control? The deeper transformation. As you consistently practice focusing on what you can control, you'll develop what the Stoics called apatheia. Not apathy, but freedom from disturbing emotions that arise from false judgments about things beyond your control. This perspective shift fundamentally changes your relationship with work. Tasks no longer appear as burdensome obligations with uncertain outcomes, but as opportunities to exercise the only true freedom you have. The freedom to act with virtue and integrity in the present moment. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, concentrate every minute on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice. This present-focused action is the antidote to the paralysis of laziness. 5. Role ethics. Fulfill your duties. The Stoic principle. The Stoics believed that each person exists within a web of relationships that define their roles and responsibilities. Epictetus explained, remember that you are an actor in a play, which is as the playwright wants it to be. For this is your duty, to act well the part that is given to you, but to select the part belongs to another. These roles, citizen, family member, friend, professional, aren't arbitrary constraints, but the context in which we express our humanity and practice virtue. By fulfilling our roles with excellence, we contribute to the good of the whole and realize our nature as social beings. Why it overcomes laziness. Laziness often stems from excessive self-focus. I don't feel like doing this. Role ethics shifts perspective from personal preference to responsibility toward others, providing powerful motivation beyond our fluctuating desires. When we clearly recognize our duties within our various roles, we're less likely to neglect important work. The question changes from, do I want to do this, to what does excellence in my role require of me right now? Practical application. Role identification. List all your significant roles, parent, professional, citizen, friend, etc. For each role, identify the specific excellences and responsibilities it entails. Refer to this list when motivation wavers. Morning role preparation. Each morning, review the roles you'll be fulfilling that day and set specific intentions for how you'll embody excellence in each one. As a teacher today, I will prepare thoroughly and engage patiently with every student. The external perspective. When avoiding a task, imagine how someone you admire would fulfill your role. What would an excellent parent/professional/friend do in this situation? Let this external perspective guide your actions. Legacy thinking. Consider how you want to be remembered in each of your roles. Would you want to be remembered as someone who fulfilled their responsibilities with integrity or someone who neglected them for momentary comfort? The deeper transformation. As you consistently practice role ethics, You develop what the Stoics considered the cardinal virtue of justice, giving to each person, including yourself, what they are due. This creates a profound shift from seeing responsibilities as burdens to recognizing them as expressions of your deepest values. Hierarchals, a Stoic philosopher, described our social roles as concentric circles with the self at the center, extending outward to family, friends, community, and humanity. The ethical task was to draw the circles somehow toward the center, treating the concerns of others as our own. By embracing your roles wholeheartedly, laziness loses its appeal in the face of meaningful contribution to something larger than yourself. 6. Virtue as the sole good. The Stoic principle. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies the conviction that virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance is the only true good, while vice is the only true evil. Everything else, wealth, health, reputation, even life itself, falls into the category of indifference that, while naturally preferred, cannot affect our moral worth or eudaimonia, flourishing. As Epictetus taught, make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. Some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. The Stoics believed that by focusing exclusively on developing virtue, we align ourselves with nature and reason, fulfilling our potential as human beings. Why it overcomes laziness. Laziness often results from an excessive focus on comfort, pleasure, and the avoidance of effort, all indifference in Stoic terminology. By reorienting our values toward virtue as the sole good, we naturally become less susceptible to the allure of ease and more motivated by excellence of character. When we genuinely believe that our moral choices are the only things that ultimately matter, we become far less likely to sacrifice integrity for comfort. The desire to act virtuously becomes more compelling than the desire to avoid effort. Practical application. Virtue lens. Before making decisions, explicitly ask, which choice best expresses wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance? Make this evaluation primary, rather than considerations of ease or comfort. Daily virtue focus. Each morning, select one cardinal virtue to emphasize throughout your day. Notice opportunities to practice it, especially in situations where you typically default to laziness. Admiration exercise. Identify individuals, historical or contemporary, whose character you deeply admire. When facing resistance toward important work, ask, what would this person do in my situation? Let their example inspire your actions. Virtue journaling. Each evening, reflect on instances where you chose comfort over virtue or virtue over comfort. Record these choices without judgment, but with an intention to strengthen your commitment to virtue tomorrow. The deeper transformation. As you consistently practice prioritizing virtue over comfort, you develop what the Stoics called eudaimonia, a state of flourishing characterized by excellence of character rather than pleasant feelings. This represents a fundamental shift in what you consider success or happiness. Seneca observed, "The happy life is a life that is in accordance with its own nature, and it cannot be achieved unless, first, the mind is sound and constantly in possession of its sanity. Secondly, if it is brave and energetic, and also capable of the noblest endurance." By embracing virtue as your highest value, laziness loses its appeal because you recognize that every choice is an opportunity to strengthen or diminish your character, and no temporary comfort is worth the compromise of your integrity. Overcoming common obstacles to Stoic practice. While Stoic philosophy offers powerful tools for overcoming laziness, implementing these principles presents its own challenges. Here we'll address common obstacles to Stoic practice and strategies for overcoming them. Obstacle 1. Initial resistance. Many people experience strong initial resistance when attempting to adopt Stoic practices. Our minds naturally rebel against discipline, especially when we've conditioned ourselves toward comfort. Stoic solution. The principle of gradual progress. Musonius Rufus, Epictetus' teacher, emphasized that virtue develops through practice rather than mere knowledge. Begin with small applications of Stoic principles and gradually expand. Even Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Do not be disgusted, discouraged, or dissatisfied if you do not succeed in doing everything according to right principles. but when you have failed, return again. Obstacle 2. Environmental influences. Our social and physical environments powerfully influence our behavior, often in ways that promote laziness rather than virtue. Stoic solution. Strategic environmental design. While not explicitly discussed by ancient Stoics, this approach aligns with their emphasis on preparation. Arrange your environment to support virtue rather than vice. Remove distractions, create visual reminders of your principles, and surround yourself with people whose values align with your aspirations. Obstacle 3. Emotional resistance. Uncomfortable emotions, anxiety, frustration, uncertainty often trigger avoidance and procrastination. Stoic solution. The discipline of assent. Epictetus taught that emotions arise from our judgments rather than external events. By practicing conscious evaluation of our impressions before assenting to them, we can recognize that the discomfort of doing difficult work is not genuinely harmful and doesn't justify avoidance. Obstacle 4. The illusion of future perfection. We often postpone action with the belief that future conditions will be more favorable, that we'll feel more motivated, have more time, or face fewer distractions later. Stoic solution. Present moment awareness. Marcus Aurelius counseled, do not disturb yourself by picturing your life as a whole. Meet the challenges of the present hour. By focusing exclusively on the present moment's requirements, we avoid the trap of waiting for perfect conditions. Obstacle 5. All or nothing thinking. We tend to view our efforts in binary terms, either perfect discipline or complete failure, which makes recovery from setbacks difficult. Stoic solution. The principle of continuous correction. Stoicism emphasizes ongoing adjustment rather than perfection. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you've made a mistake, you can always return to the person you meant to be. Each moment offers a fresh opportunity to align with virtue, regardless of past failures. Integrating Stoic principles into daily life. Theoretical understanding of Stoic principles isn't enough to overcome laziness. These concepts must be translated into consistent daily practices. Here are practical approaches for integrating Stoicism into your routine. Morning preparatory routine. The Stoics emphasize beginning each day with intentional preparation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, say to yourself first thing in the morning, today I shall meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, aggressive, treacherous, malicious, unsocial. Create a morning routine that includes memento mori reflection. Acknowledge your mortality and the preciousness of the day ahead. Role review. Identify the roles you'll fulfill today and the excellences each requires. Obstacle anticipation. Visualize potential challenges and prepare your responses. Virtue intention. Select one virtue to emphasize throughout your day. This preparation primes your mind for Stoic responses rather than reflexive laziness when challenges arise. Midday pause and reset. The Stoics practiced regular self-examination throughout the day. Seneca wrote, the spirit ought to be brought up for examination daily. This was Sextius's practice. When the day was over and he had retired to his night's rest, he would put these questions to his soul. What bad habit have you cured today? What fault have you resisted? In what respect are you better? Implement a midday pause to assess alignment. Have your actions aligned with your morning intentions? Refocus on control. Are you focusing energy on what you can control? Reset intentions. Recommit to virtuous action for the remainder of the day. This prevents the accumulation of small compromises that gradually erode our resolve. Evening reflection practice. The Stoics ended each day with reflective examination. Epictetus advised his students to review their daily actions and evaluate their virtue. Create an evening practice that includes actions review. What did you accomplish or avoid today? Were your actions aligned with virtue? Judgment assessment. Did you maintain focus on what you can control? Progress recognition. Acknowledge areas of improvement without pride or shame. Tomorrow preparation. Set clear intentions for the day ahead. This cycle of preparation, action, and reflection gradually transforms abstract Stoic principles into embodied wisdom. The Stoic view of genuine productivity. The Stoic approach to overcoming laziness differs fundamentally from modern productivity systems. while contemporary methods often focus on maximizing output and efficiency. Stoicism emphasizes aligning actions with nature and virtue, quality over quantity. For Stoics, the value of an action lies not in its external results, but in the intention and virtue with which it's performed. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "No longer talk about the kind of man that a good man ought to be, but be such." This quality-focused approach means presence over multitasking, giving full attention to single tasks rather than dividing focus, excellence over volume, prioritizing work that aligns with your highest values rather than maximizing output, process over outcome, finding satisfaction in virtuous effort regardless of results. The role of rest in Stoic practice. Contrary to common misconceptions, Stoicism doesn't advocate constant activity or self-denial. The Stoics recognize the importance of appropriate rest and recreation as part of a natural, balanced life. Seneca wrote, "We should take wandering outdoor walks so that the mind might be nourished and refreshed by the open air and deep breathing. Sometimes we should take a break from troubling thoughts." The key distinction is between restorative rest, intentional relaxation that replenishes energy for virtuous action, lazy avoidance, using comfort or entertainment to escape meaningful responsibility. The Stoic ideal isn't perpetual activity, but appropriate action, doing what nature and reason require in each moment, whether that's focused work or deliberate rest. Conclusion. The journey from acrasia to enkrateia. The ancient Greeks used two terms that capture the essence of our struggle with laziness. Acrasia, the state of acting against one's better judgment, knowing what should be done but failing to do it. Enkrateia, the virtue of self-mastery, the ability to act according to reason rather than impulse. The journey from acrasia to enkrateia isn't achieved through willpower alone, but through the systematic application of philosophical principles that transform how we understand ourselves and our place in the world. By practicing the 6 Stoic approaches we've explored, remembering your mortality, memento mori, embracing challenges, amor fati, anticipating obstacles, premeditatio malorum, focusing on what you can control, fulfilling your roles with excellence, prioritizing virtue as the sole good, you gradually develop what the Stoics considered true freedom. Not the absence of obligations, but the ability to act virtuously regardless of circumstance or temporary desire. As Epictetus taught, freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. The ultimate Stoic antidote to laziness isn't found in techniques or systems, but in a fundamental reorientation of values. When we genuinely recognize that virtue is the only true good, effort in its service no longer feels like an imposition, but like the most natural expression of our humanity. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, at dawn when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, "I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do? Or is this what I was created for, to huddle under the blankets and stay warm?" The Stoic journey from laziness to virtuous action isn't easy, but it offers something far more valuable than efficiency or accomplishment. It offers a life of meaning, integrity, and true flourishing. Practical exercises for daily implementation. To translate Stoic principles into tangible habits, here are specific exercises for daily practice. 1. The view from above. Purpose. Gain perspective on your concerns and overcome the paralysis of overthinking. Practice. Find a quiet place and imagine yourself rising above your current location, seeing first your immediate surroundings, then your city, country, planet, and finally the universe. From this cosmic perspective, consider the task you've been avoiding. Does it still warrant anxiety? What is the most appropriate action from this broader view? 2. Values clarification. Purpose. Ensure your efforts align with your deepest values. Practice. List your core values in order of importance. For each task you're avoiding, ask, how does completing this align with my values? If there's no clear connection, consider whether the task should be eliminated rather than procrastinated. 3. The Stoic fork. Purpose. Make clear decisions between virtue and vice. Practice. When facing resistance toward important work, Draw a literal fork on paper. Label one path virtue and the other vice. Under each, write the short-term and long-term consequences of your choice. Let this visual reminder guide your decision. 4. Progressive training. Purpose. Build discipline gradually through progressive challenges. Practice. Begin with small acts of voluntary discomfort, cold showers, fasting, digital detox, and gradually increase their duration or intensity. This builds the muscle of choosing difficult, right action over comfortable wrong action. 5. Virtue journaling. Purpose. Track your progress in overcoming laziness through Stoic principles. Practice. Each evening, record instances where you remembered your mortality to overcome procrastination, embraced a challenge you would typically avoid, successfully anticipated and navigated obstacles, focused on what you could control rather than external results, fulfilled your roles with excellence, chose virtue over comfort. This practice creates accountability and reinforces Stoic thinking patterns. Epilogue. The Stoic path to meaningful productivity. The Stoic approach to overcoming laziness isn't about maximizing productivity or achieving external success. It's about living in accordance with nature and reason, fulfilling our human potential by making choices aligned with virtue rather than temporary comfort. As you implement these Stoic principles, you may find that your definition of productivity itself transforms. Activities once deemed productive because they produced external results may now seem meaningless if they don't contribute to virtue or human flourishing. Conversely, efforts that develop wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance gain importance even when they produce no tangible output. The quality of your attention and intention becomes more significant than the quantity of your achievements. In closing, remember Marcus Aurelius' simple but profound advice. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. The true antidote to laziness isn't found in productivity systems or motivation techniques, but in the daily choice to align your actions with your highest nature, to live in each moment as the person you aspire to be. This is the ultimate Stoic insight about overcoming laziness. When your actions express your deepest values, motivation ceases to be a problem. You act not because you force yourself to, but because you recognize that virtuous action is the most natural expression of your humanity. And in this recognition lies true freedom, not freedom from effort or obligation, but freedom to express your highest nature regardless of circumstance or temporary desire.